Thanks for tuning in. We're Acecomicals. I have with me my co-host Rahul Jani and Leon Everett. I'm Greg Driver. Let's get started. Hi guys. It's almost Christmas, but it's not Christmas, so it isn't, but it almost is. I guess this is what we call Advent. This is episode number 24. How are we doing? I have both my co-hosts Ray and Leon with me again today. Hi guys.
Alright Greg, good evening.
Hey man.
So, what are we reading during almost Christmas but not Christmas?
Almost Christmas but not Christmas.
Because I think it's a bit early.
The limbo period.
It's a bit early to bust out the Christmas comics, I think. Because I don't know, I bought the DC Holiday Special this week, but I'm holding off reading it because I'm like, it's got to be closer to Christmas before I start doing things like that. You know, I want to be a little bit Christmas, but I don't want to be too Christmas.
Yeah, you don't want to like blow your Christmas load too early.
Exactly. Yeah, I just need to save it a little bit, savor it, and sort of like.
Got to edge your Christmas out.
Exactly.
Make it last as long as possible.
Exactly. Plus,
this is terrible. Stop ruining Christmas. Oh my god.
It's impossible to feel Christmassy when you're still working as well. So, and I guess that's what being an adult is.
Edging toward the end of the year, right?
So
enough.
kids, don't become adults.
Another dead tree in your living room, closer to oblivion. Anyway.
Oh my god.
On to happier things, like the stuff we've been reading in preparation for this week's episode. So we have Batman Annual number 2, which is what I'm going to just jump straight in with because I loved this. So this is like the second Batman Annual under the whole DC Rebirth thing, and I really, really liked what they did with the whole Catwoman-Batman romance thing in this, because Tom King, with his recent Batman comics, he's as you will probably know, as I've probably talked about previous episodes, he has coupled up Batman and Catwoman again, and they are engaged. Batman proposed to Catwoman, Catwoman said yes. So they then traipsed out to the desert to tell Talia, and also to get back one of Catwoman's friends who Catwoman had taken the hit for and gone to jail previously, so that she could own up to her crime and they could get married properly. I think that's something to do with Batman's overbearing justice complex. I don't know. But from there, basically, this is like one of what I would say one of many endings, one of many endpoints that Batman could take, which I think it's a really nice ending. I quite like it. It's sad. It's beautiful, and it's a really lovely comic. It's like it shows the beginnings of Catwoman and Batman, like when they first met, and like this kind of like rooftop romance ballet in masks that these two characters do and have done in comics for years. If you've read a Batman comic where Batman and Catwoman cross paths, you'll know what I'm talking about. And then you end up with them in later life, and they get some bad news, and it's how it goes from there, basically, and up to the inevitable death of Batman, because this is what happens to Batman. This is what happens in the end for Batman. Batman stories. Batman dies. And what I really enjoyed about this is it feeds back into one of my favourite Batman comics, which is Whatever Happened to the Caped Crusader. I don't know if either of you two have ever read that, have you?
I don't think so, no.
No, it's one that I've always heard about. It's that one there's ones that are just out there that are part of the canon that you just don't get around to reading, even though you're quite aware of what goes down.
Yeah, it's not. I'm not sure if it's part of the. It's not really part of the canon. It's like a meta celebration / look at Batman. That.
Yeah, I guess speaking loosely, I guess more of like canon in terms of you should read this Batman book.
Yeah. If you're going to have several Batman books on your shelf.
It is canon.
Yeah. If you're going to have several Batman books on your shelf, that has to be one of them. But it's... Neil Gaiman basically was tasked with writing the last 2 issues of the Batman comic at the time. I think it was the Detective Comics run at the time under the current numbering, and it was going to be renumbered and it was going to start again. So he did this whole kind of rebirth thing where this is but one of many endings, and in the end, Batman, you always die, but then you are reborn again, and the same things always happen. Your parents always die, you always become Batman, you always fight for justice, and inevitably you always die. It sounds kind of bleak, but it's not. It's actually really nice, and I really, really, really love this book. And it's got like this kind of like those children's books like Goodnight World, Goodnight Moon, Goodnight Stars, like the Goodnight book. If you guys know what I'm talking about, these like children's books you can get. It's supposed to help kids sleep, get some saying goodnight to the world kind of thing. It's kind of it's got that kind of framing around it towards the end, but the beginning of the book is more to do with, because he's kind of in this like near-death experience, and what I perceive to be a nexus between the afterlife and his current life, or the nexus between the next life and the life he's currently in, because he will be reborn and reincarnated. Each villain has a different story. Each person attending his funeral, because he's watching his own funeral, so each person attending his funeral has a different tale for how he died. And reading this Batman annual off the back of having reread What Happened to the Caped Crusader quite recently, I can actually slot this in my head, which is like a really cool thing for me. Like, I don't, obviously, I don't know if it was intended this way, if Tom King intended to write it this way, or if I'm just being a massive nerd, but and I'm just making my own headcanon, but I managed to slot this in as one of Batman's many endings. And it's very poignant. It's a very poignant story. It's a very nice story, and I think it fits really well. And because I look at it that way, when I read the ending of the Batman annual, it doesn't feel so absolute and make me feel so sad as it should, I guess.
That sounds really good.
Yeah.
It also sounds really Tom King as well, the way you described that.
Yeah. He's it's really what he's doing at the moment across the Batman books that he's writing, and with Batman and Catwoman, it's kind of really like I guess it's what he does with Mr. Miracle as well. He just injects reality, real life relationships, and real kind of, the way people interact into the stories. Like with Mr. Miracle, he's married, and then there's the way he interacts with his wife, Big Barda.
Yeah, it all feels like very like adult.
Yeah, and that's what he's done with Catwoman and Batman as well, and I'm really enjoying it. And currently, Batman 36, which is out this week, so a week of recording, Wednesday the 6th of December, that hit the stands. You've got Batman and Catwoman meeting Superman and Lois Lane, and there's this really beautiful bit before the meeting as they come up to each other and end up meeting in a hallway, and their various different ways of getting into that hallway. That Superman takes the elevator, Batman's taking the hard way in, climbing up an elevator shaft and then pulling the doors open, kind of thing.
That sounds great.
So Batman. But they as they're doing that, they're each talking about each other. There's like, Batman's like, you can't be Superman's friend because Superman's so far above everyone, and Superman's this huge lofty alien that could crush us all with his pinky kind of thing, and whatever. That's not his exact words, but this is the kind of stuff he's saying. Whereas Superman's like, Batman doesn't want me to be his friend. The fact that he didn't tell me he was engaged tells me that I'm not his friend, And they're both like worrying about this stuff, and then all of a sudden they meet and they don't say anything to each other, and then Lois reaches over and grabs Catwoman's hand and is like, oh, you must be Catwoman, I'm Lois, kind of thing, And issue 37, which I'm looking forward to, is going to be the follow-on from this, where they go on, I think, well, it's called Double Date, I think, so yeah. We'll see how that works out. It is.
Are we talking about Batman or Riverdale right now? It sounds so high school.
I know, but it's great. I love it.
It sounds brilliant.
Tom King, please carry on. No, yeah, it's another side to Batman that I'm seeing. It's like a Batman that has learned to play well with others, if that makes sense.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
it's going against the status quo.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think you've convinced me to pick this up.
Yeah, so pick up the Batman Annual and read this kind of sad tearjerker love story. If this was a movie, it would be the kind of thing that you would sit and watch, and like like a tearjerker romance film type thing, but with superheroes, where they grow old together, and then there's the end, and the end's pretty sad, but it is still happy kind of thing. But yeah, so Batman Annual number 2. And everything else that I've just mentioned in trying to articulate my thoughts on Batman Annual number 2.
Can I just ask, it's number 2. Where's number 1? Was that last year, or is that something we've missed from like a couple of months ago?
No, number 1, Batman Annual number 1 is like another annual that they published. So this is like annuals come out kind of like once a year, or sometimes there's like they put
annually.
Yeah, sometimes it's like biannually. It's not. I don't know. Okay. It depends on the scheduling. Batman Annual number 1 was last year, and I think that was the one that had the award-winning story of the Bat Dog. That won at the Eisners.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I bought that book as well, and that heartwarming, beautiful Bat Dog story. Yeah, because it's the whole thing where Batman gets this dog, and he's trying to rehabilitate this dog and train this dog, and in the end he gives up on it because he can't get it to listen to him, but then Alfred carries on in the background training the dog, and by the end Alfred has managed to train the dog because he doesn't give up on the dog, because Alfred doesn't give up on people.
Yeah. How many pages is this annual, the number 2 annual? Like it's not regular floppy size.
No,
right?
it's like an extra bit bigger.
Okay, yeah. Cool. I'll keep an eye out for it. I'll pick it up.
Yeah, it's a nice book. Nice book. So I'll move on to my next one, which is Ghostbusters Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, which has now concluded. It's like all 5 issues done. And this I have been gushing over for similar reasons, because it's characters that I adore and have adored since the dawn of my time on this earth. So that's the Ghostbusters and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It's been a great story. It's real fun, and although it's all interdimensional peril, and they're going up against an amalgam of their foes. So the Ghostbusters have the Collectors, which are interdimensional beings that take you to another dimension and hold you there for the price at somebody else's whim, for the price of part of their soul, kind of thing. And the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are up against a foe that they killed in a previous book called Darius Dunn, who has found a way to summon the Collectors from the afterlife and send them after the Turtles in the real, in life, I guess. This story is. It works on 2 levels, like I said, because it works on the interdimensional fun, the action, the bombasticness of it all. Turtles and Ghostbusters coming together, 2 great franchises brought into one with a really great team behind it. You've got great writers, Eric Burnham and Tom Waltz, a whole cavalcade of artists: Tag Galusha, Dan Schooning, Mark Torres, Charles Paul Wilson III, Luis Antonio Delgado. Just, yeah. It is like... Because I think when I mentioned and talked about this before, every time they zip to another dimension within the book, it's a different art style. So they've got a different artist doing the next 2 pages every time you flip the pages, and it just keeps it's just nice and fresh, and it's cool to look at, and it really gives you a sense that they are in a different place in time and space, The really cool thing about the way this story works is the way that they've used it in the evolution of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as characters. So it's in the name, right? These guys are teenagers, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Well, as they're traveling with their designated partners from the Ghostbusters, they've been matched up personality-wise, I guess, in most cases. So Donnie is with Egon, And because both of them have died before, they're talking about their experiences with death. And Donnie's like, well, when I died, my consciousness was stored inside a robot. And it was kind of weird seeing myself recuperating in a hospital bed through the eyes of one of my creations, kind of thing. And Egon talking very little about his experience with death, but he seems to be annoyed that he came back via mystical means rather than technological means, and he's jealous of Donatello having been inside a robot. But it's the way that they kind of like work through these issues that they have, and as a unit, as the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, because they're angsty, they're teenagers, and the way they work through these issues with their Ghostbusters mentors as such, because Winston Zedmore and Leonardo are very much the same, because they're the good soldier, the kind of like the strategist of the team, and the way those two talk to each other, and the way Winston kind of is mentoring Leonardo in being a leader, and in being a in how to strategize and things like that, and how those two work together, and then how Peter Venkman is helping Michelangelo figure out who he wants to be and how he's going to move forward through life. And there's this really touching moment at the end where, because Peter Venkman has a psychology degree, and he sees how Michelangelo manages to diffuse a situation by using words instead of violence. He gives him a book about psychology, and he's like, you know what, you'd be well suited to this. Why don't you think about getting a psychology degree? And you've got Ray Stantz, and he's been, because Ray Stantz is like, this is like the mismatch that works but doesn't work kind of thing, because you've got Ray Stantz, who's like the happy-go-lucky heart of the team, and then you've got Raphael, who is Mr. Angry, and those two get matched together, and it's kind of like Ray attempting to help Raphael come to terms with his anger in places. So it works on that level, that the Ghostbusters are mentoring the Turtles into becoming more well-rounded individuals, and I quite like that. I really enjoyed that side of the story. So yeah, I think it makes a great book. It's really fun, and there's obviously other layers to it and things like that, which I'm probably going to go back through and reread the whole lot start to finish, because I really enjoyed this. Definitely one to pick up. Moving on from there is one that we've both read, isn't it, Leon?
Yes, I'm still an issue behind, but I'm on my way catching up.
Oh, I've been screaming at you to catch up on this, because this is something that I've wanted to talk about, because there's it's just super cool moments in issue 2, and of course we're talking about Batman White Knight, which is Sean Murphy's baby. He's the writer and the artist, with assistance from Matt Hollingsworth and Todd Klein. And I guess at the moment I'm loving the evolution of this story, and how it's all slowly coming together, and how the pieces of the jigsaw are fitting in. So whereas we believe the Joker is cured and is now attempting to help Gotham and bring Gotham back to its feet, and is painting Batman as a demon and a villain, you find out that maybe he's not as squeaky clean as you think he is at the end of issue 1. And it's starting to creep in now that maybe he's got this huge master plan, and although he's not the Joker anymore and he's not dealing in chaos, what he is doing, it's almost like he's setting Batman up for a fall deliberately trying to make Batman look
to set him as the bad guy.
To set him up as the bad guy, deliberately trying to make him look reckless, deliberately putting him in these situations where he has to cause damage to the city and things like that, and it's all being exposed that the rich people of Gotham have a Batman relief fund and everything to sort of like, kind of like to do like an insurance scam type thing, like disaster relief, but it's actually just Batman, because you don't get hurricanes in Gotham. So yeah, where are you with this, Leon? What do you reckon?
Yeah, It's interesting. It's very like it continues down the road of being quite an interesting and fascinating take on like the Joker and the Batman, and in some ways, in like how that dynamic would play out in the real world in some ways, just with the reactions of Gotham, because a lot of the time Gotham is this it's the city, it's just this machine that spawns people who need help and bad guys, but a lot of the time you don't really like for all these adventures and scenarios where Batman puts himself on the line to save the city. A lot of the time you don't really get a feeling for how the city feels. It just seems like, oh, they're grateful that there's someone there to help try and clean up the dirty, corrupt town. But this is a very interesting take on it, showing the sort of the human cost and the will of the people in a way. It reminds me in some ways of the Dark Knight Rises, the Nolan film that capped out the Dark Knight trilogy,
yes,
where that was Bane empowering the masses, the 99%,
yes,
which is referenced in this book, to overthrow the rich people, basically to eat the rich and take over and chase them out. And it feels along those lines. And it does some... It successfully, and in some ways that I'm unsure about, maybe unsuccessfully, paints a mirror between things going on in the real world and like how those reactions would be in this Gotham, where it's like somebody's just dropped like a woke take. The Joker or Jack Napier dropped a woke take in his big prison hearing, and he's cleared everyone's eyes, and they're like, yeah, maybe the Joker, maybe Batman is to blame. Maybe Gotham PD are helping keep the rich, the 1%, the gatekeepers as they call them, on top, and that's causing like a massive backlash in the city, which works towards Jack's like ultimate goals, which seems to be like it feels real that he's cured of being the Joker, but it's a case of that now it's like full revenge, and like by any means necessary, sort of place the target on the city and on the city as in the government of the city, the police and all the corrupt people, and ultimately Batman. And yeah, the way they like paint him being the Joker is like a sickness, like this blur that he was addicted to. It's like, it just reminds me a lot of when people talk about after they've been to rehab after a drug addiction, and how some of the memories from before are just hazy, and some feel real, some don't. They feel like a waking dream, and even like looking at pictures of stuff in the past back then, they just don't remember if that happened or not, or when that happened. And they do touch on that quite a bit here. Like, I mean, to go back to a point I was saying before, where I think it works successfully because in ways it is quite I don't know if true or realistic, but it just feels like a natural reaction you'd have if someone charismatic did hold the mirror up, and it's nice to see a more grey take on Batman instead of it being quite black and white, like good versus bad, and like the cost. And you even have that in this issue where it feels like Bruce hasn't been aware of the butterfly effect that he's had on the town, and how like weird sort of like gentrification and like devaluing of property by him stopping bad guys has affected people negatively. Well, because he's always focused on the grander macro big bads and like for the greater good, but he's forgotten or just overlooked that a lot of the people who can't defend themselves, the little guy, the marginalized people are getting screwed because rich people can't do rich people stuff, and it is interesting for to have that realization. It kind of reminds me, to go back to a Nolan film, Batman Begins, where at the end Gordon is giving Batman this great speech, which I like at the end of the movie, and he's talking about escalation, and it's like we start wearing bulletproof vests, we start wearing Kevlar, they start using armor-piercing bullets, etc. So if a guy starts using theatricality and dressing up, other people are going to do it, and that's when they tease the Joker card at the end. Yeah. And it's great because during that whole bit, Batman's like, huh? Like, he hadn't even considered that, because his thing is, he wants to be a symbol that people can look up to and to strike fear into the hearts of criminals. But he didn't even think about collateral damage and what him not taking the nuclear option, but him fighting fire with fire. He didn't really think about what the consequences of that would be, and it's nice to sort of see that in the pages here. But like bits that don't seem as successful, it's like, so like it has like an homage to the Jonathan Bachman photo of Aisha Evans from Baton Rouge, one of the protests that followed the death, the police brutality. I think that was Philandro Castile and the Black Lives Matter protests. And like he has the picture, which is the striking one of like the cops running up to Aisha, and she's wearing like a dress and she's like unflinching, and it's become like a classic photo now. But he has that in there, and it almost feels too on the nose, because what happens with that is then it has a possible uncomfortable side effect if the people in the city who are rebelling and protesting are correct. Well, more so that it sort of pairs their struggle and the real life struggle, and it sort of hand in hand puts it with the Joker's thing, which is seemingly a plot to get revenge, while using basically the outrage of the city to facilitate his revenge. So it almost creates an uncomfortable thing of like, well, if these people who are also like angry, like rightly angry at the 1%, are they being like tricked? Is it like that conservative commentator who appears in the news, and it's just like, are they just butthurt or like snowflake triggered special snowflakes like SJWs? Like it's. I think it can be, if it doesn't like stick the landing, it could be a backfire. Yeah. But I'm willing to give it the benefit of the doubt for now, because I'm only 2 issues in, and yeah. I think there's a lot of interesting commentary.
I see where you're coming from, that it could completely take some very real life struggles and
like trivialize them.
Yeah,
sort of.
Yeah. Not just trivialize them as well, but to align them with an obvious villain, or maybe even take a view of things that, or cause people to take a view of things that aren't, that isn't.
Yeah. So like it could lead to bad readings of real life situations.
Exactly, that's what I was trying to get at.
Yeah.
But I quite like what it's doing so far, and I do like this whole sort of class war thing that the Joker has, because he has turned it into a class war, hasn't he?
Yeah.
And it's I don't know, the way Batman's written in this, it's almost like you find yourself kind of rooting for Jack Napier slightly, which you shouldn't. But you should, but then you shouldn't. I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the thing. I think it's complicating it in an interesting way, and I'm hopeful that it will continue to complicate it, because even if the Joker does have some evil scheme and he does bad things, a lot of the points that he hit on are legit, and I get like a lot of these things require like discussion and nuance. So it's like just because he stands for something but is also bad, it doesn't necessarily mean that the thing that he's standing for is corrupt. Yeah, which is like that whole sort of straw man argument you can have with a lot of things. But I think it's interesting. I think that, there's a lot of scope, and it's 8 issues, is it? Is it 2 of 8? I think. Well, I'm up to 2 of 8.
Yeah, I think there are 8 in total. I think.
Yeah, so it feels like there's a nice contained story here, which is which I'm always down for.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think you've just hit on everything that I was going to say really about this. The way that it feels like, I mean, what he's doing on the surface appears right, but he's still malevolent, and he's hijacking a legitimate cause and using it to his own ends, which I think is probably one of the most twisted things he's done yet.
Yeah, that's what's sick.
Yeah, that's it.
It's like we were only getting the Joker at like half ability.
Yeah, now we've got the Joker on volume 11 or whatever, and no, I'm enjoying this, and I'm going to follow it to the end and see where it takes me, because I do like to see fresh takes on Batman characters, and you all know I love Batman. So on to the last thing which is on my list, which Ray was nice enough to buy a massive stash of Riverdale comics for me last week when they were on Humble Bundle. So I'm eternally grateful to him for that, because I was talking about this bundle on Twitter, like, oh my god, it's such a great bundle, and I'm not gonna lie, at the moment I'm not exactly flush with cash. It's Christmas. I'm buying presents for people, and I was like, look, I was saying to people on Twitter, look, buy it. I haven't got the disposable for this, but you need to buy this bundle, because it is a stash of amazing comics, and it's all Archie comics. It's all Riverdale stuff. It's like the current Archie comics, some of the cool classic Archie comics, and some of the Riverdale tie-in stuff is in there as well, I think, isn't it? Yeah. So
and this is one of those bundles that I saw the email for a while ago and then completely forgot to buy it, and you reminded me of it. And I have to admit, I think I told you this, but I was very drunk at my work Christmas party when you sent that tweet. So I was flushed with alcohol, and I was just happy to give my first Christmas gift. So you're welcome.
Yeah, Rahul put on his red hat and his white beard, got out his debit card, and laid down some Queen's faces so that I could have this epic bundle of comics, which I'm very thankful for. So I started reading it, and what better place to start than my favourite character from the Riverdale TV series, Jughead. So I started with Jughead Volume 1. And it's like, it's a fun book, it's mild peril at best kind of thing. It's what Archie comics, I guess, are known for. High school drama / sensationalism kind of thing, but this is more if you watch Riverdale, this is like on a goofier level. So where Riverdale is quite dark in places and has these like real kind of like yes, it's teen issues and everything else, and it's it's teen drama on the surface, but Riverdale also has this really dark undercurrent, the TV series I'm talking about now, and it also has these real the issues that they bring to light within the book, within the TV series, are quite real and quite more threatening than what I'm reading here in this Jughead comic. But what Jughead is, the way Jughead deals with this, it's like fun, it's bouncy, it's supposed to be just it's like a comedy. It's a comedy book. It's meant to make you laugh. And what we have here is a we start the book with Jughead sitting in his living room having pulled an all-nighter to play a new video game. And the first 2 pages is him stationary in his chair with different bubbles of speech coming from the TV. And then slowly the sun rises in the background. As you go from panel to panel, it's like going from night to day. And he's not moving a muscle. Occasionally he's got a bit of pizza in his mouth or something, and it's just like going round. And then Archie knocks at his door, and Archie's like, okay, it's time for school. So off to school they go. And when they get to school, Betty is doing a protest in the schoolyard, and Jughead basically tells her that what she's doing is pointless, but in like a more sarky, kind of sharper, kind of funny way than I could right now on this microphone without reading the comic word for word. And then they go into school, and they sit down in class, and they've got a new principal. The school's been taken over. There's a new regime. And it comes to lunchtime. You know, Jughead's ignoring this, and you know, he doesn't care. Ignoring it until it affects him, basically, because it comes to lunchtime, and all of a sudden, they've changed the menu, and there's no lasagna anymore. There's just this like weird gruel stuff, and he's not going to have any of that. No, this is a boy that likes to eat. And they messed with his food, and that was it. That was where he snapped. And this is where he starts to decide that he needs to sort of stand up for what he likes, because it's now something that's finally affecting him. So he kind of goes out and starts protesting, trying to protest. And he's, you know, like, you've got this regime that's being enforced. And where I am at the moment in this volume, because I've not finished it, but where I am at the moment, he has been successfully breaking the rules and playing the game, but doing it his way. So he's playing the game, but not playing the game. He's breaking the rules without breaking the rules. So there's a moment where he has to do an obstacle course in a PE lesson, and he has to finish it in a certain time or he'll get detention. And if he finishes it quicker than a certain time, he gets he gets let off from the next 3 gym classes or something. So he's rigged the course. He's put a skateboard in at part of it, and he's put like plastic on the floor so that he can skid across it and things like that to get to the end like really quick. And there's another great bit that I read where he hijacks Betty's protest and uses it to get real food back in the cafeteria instead of gruel, because he goes to a cooking class, learns how to make hamburgers, and then sells hamburgers, and says that all the proceeds from what he's selling goes to Betty's protest, which is actually not because he's trying to help Betty, but because he's found a loophole in the rules that means kids can sell their own food in the cafeteria if it's for a protest or for like a good cause or for a charity. And
this all sounds a lot more like the old, like Jughead with his head in the clouds from the old comics that I remember reading when I was like back in the early 90s, I think.
Yeah.
When, as much as I love like Cole Sprouse's Jughead from the Riverdale TV show, this is the thing I remember.
Yeah, this is Jughead with his head in the clouds, because there's these really cool daydream sequences that he has as well, where he falls asleep in detention, and then there's one where he passes out because of the shock of not being able to have real food in the cafeteria. And it's just Jughead with his head in the clouds, as you say, and it's great. It's great fun. I'm loving it.
Does he at least have a burger?
Oh yeah,
like back in the good old days.
Yeah, he has a whole dream about a special burger that has infinite burgers inside it.
Good. I'm reading this first. Cool.
You're not supposed to read it first. I think you're supposed to read Archie before you read this, but
oh, okay.
Yeah, but it works anyway, because obviously I've not read any of it. This is the first thing I've picked from the menu, but I think I've probably gone for the main course and skipped the starter. I don't know. But anyway, it's really good regardless, and I think you can read them independently of each other. I don't think you really need to read each one in sequence or anything. But yeah, no, it's a great book. I love it.
It's also, just to point out again, that it's a really cool bundle. And the charity that it's going to this time is the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund. So, if you want to support the rights of comic book creators, then this is a good one to go for.
Indeedy. And I mean, this is I've not read an awful lot of Archie before now, so this is like kind of, you know more about this than me, Ray. Actually, this is one of those times where, because you read this when you were a kid, and you've read Archie comics before. This is me not knowing that much about Archie, and this is like Riverdale, and then the horror comics, and then now this. This is me getting into it, kind of thing. So,
I mean, from what I can tell of the bundle, I think in the later packs for this bundle, there's the best of Archie comics, and this style is what I remember. And I used to pick up this is from when I used to visit India when I was a kid, and the hotel near the hotel that I stayed at, which was a much nicer hotel, as in the one we stayed at was crappier than the hotel which had the shop that sold the Archie comics. And I used to buy literally stacks of these pocket, like you could fit them in your back pocket. Because they were from India, I could never quite tell if they were first-hand or second-hand from like a whole decade before. So they were either from the 80s or the 90s. I genuinely don't know. But this is the kind of thing I recognize. And I've always been curious about this new, like, modern, shiny style, especially because the Archie comic is done, the art's done by Fiona Staples, who I adore, who does the Saga artwork. And yeah, it's a good excuse to get into these. I have no idea what to expect from this new run, but it sounds great.
You know your classic, the classic Archie though, so you know the classic characters. So
well, I honestly can't remember it very well, so I'm going to have to flick through these best of Archie comics and see if they have, if that's what I remember.
I think that'll be my next stop as well. I think I'm going to read them concurrently, kind of build my knowledge that way. But yeah, no.
I got my eyes on finishing that Betty and Veronica run.
Yeah.
I mean, it all looks cool.
New Comic Book Day, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I grabbed that bundle because it's too good to pass up.
It's such a good bundle, isn't it? So yeah, there we go, Humble. We've done some shilling for you. So I guess that's me done. That's my list up, over and done with. So you guys want to play rock paper scissors for who next?
I pick all of them, so I win.
Yeah.
It was fine, whatever. I was going to give it to you anyway.
Yeah, Mr. Rock. I got you with my paper. So yeah, I'll start with Black Bolt 1, which I think the first issue came out in July or so, but it's part of a newer run written by Saladin Ahmed, art done by Christian Ward, and the lettering done by VC's Clayton Cowles. And what it feels like is an interesting new take on the Inhumans, and it's funny because in some ways it does give me shades of the Mr. Miracle, the Tom King run, but in a very different way. Like, before going into this, I've never really been too familiar with the Inhumans. I've always just known them as being like the proto-new gods. Like, for a long time, I always felt like Marvel's answer to the new gods, until I realized that Kirby created them before he left Marvel for DC. But like, it seems very similar in terms of like a royal family of like superpowered people who are not quite human, who different characters end up on Earth for whatever reason. But it was weird because I remember Inhumans being the final film on the slate, like post Phase 3 MCU, and this was like maybe late 2019, pushed into 2020 film, and this there was such a vocal groundswell of people like Inhumans. I was like, why are people so hyped for Inhumans? Like, I've just never delved into this stuff as much. But yeah, like, it seems like Marvel did them super dirty, like super, like that show, which is part of the ABC Marvel shows, not the Netflix or Hulu Marvel shows, but the ABC ones, which I was never a fan of. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Or I heard Carter was good, but Agent Carter was good. But yeah, the ABC stuff just doesn't look good, and this looked absolutely terrible, like the worst type of cable sci-fi. I mean, on Rotten Tomatoes, it has 10% and 23 Metacritic score. Like, people went in, savaged it, and rightly so, based on that trailer.
I've never watched it.
Didn't we see that trailer?
Oh, sorry, Karen.
Didn't that trailer come ahead of a film that we watched? And we were just like, what the hell is this? Like, it genuinely looks made for TV, and it was on this massive screen in front of us. It looked terrible.
Oh, yeah, because it was coming out in the first 2 episodes they put in IMAX for some reason.
Oh, right. Okay.
Dear Lord. No,
But yes, sorry.
I was going to say, I haven't watched an episode of it. I keep seeing advertised in comics that I buy. My experience of the Inhumans is via the Fantastic Four, because they pop up a lot in Fantastic Four books, and I'm always wondering, how are Marvel going to make this work when they're so hell-bent on not having the Fantastic Four?
Yeah, I mean, I could see how they could have worked in the current MCU stuff. It seemed like a lot of people kept saying that they're like teasing Inhuman stuff in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. show, so I assumed there was a plan, and then it became a TV show, which looks bad, so that's a shame. But like, yeah, like, I've never really been too familiar with all of this, but I'd heard good things. I can't even remember who, but one of the comic artists that I follow retweeted some praise for this book, so I thought, oh, cool. Let me give it a go. I think I've even followed the writer on Twitter, or at least seen a lot of retweets from them. So I didn't know that they wrote comics. So I thought, yeah, screw it. Let me dive in. And yeah, it's very promising. Like, it gives, the first page has like an info dump about like previously on Inhumans, and it shows what the state of things are. And it reminded me a lot of how Ta-Nehisi Coates handled his beginning of the Black Panther run that he did with Still Freeze last year. That's still ongoing. But with they used a lot of like montage. In this, like, there's a quick sort of preamble in terms of what happened, and it briefly explains like the power and the fact that Black he's like the king of the Inhumans, and his brother's evil, blah blah blah. But then like a great tragedy happened, and then boom, it starts, and it starts in such a, I don't even know if off kilter's way, and it's such a like a claustrophobic way, where with this character who doesn't know where they are or what they did or what's going on, and there's a voiceover on there that like a voiceover. There's like a narration in third person, and oftentimes I can find like a heavy reliance on that to feel like a crutch or like lazy, but like it's used so effectively here, and it starts to like repeat, and you really gives like this horrible feeling of like limbo and just being stuck doing the same thing again and again, and not being able to tell the days apart, and feel like that you're being played with and toyed with. It's this horrible like hellscape devoid of all hope, and they really nail the feeling of like powerlessness and just claustrophobia, but also like paranoia. And it's so interesting. I use interesting a lot because I feel like even with superhero comics, people are starting to do, well, starting, but people are very much recently doing a lot of interesting things with them and recontextualizing them and bringing in sort of modern context and modern like hopes and fears. So it's very I know it's very struggling for a word. It's very like, it feels very now. This is super, like, dark streak rolling through, and in this first issue, you're following Black Bolt imprisoned, and you don't know what's real and what's not. But it has some really good hooks in there that are definitely going to have me like reading, trying to catch up on the run and seeing what else is in store. The panel composition and the color palette uses that like blue fuchsia that I really love, and reminds me a lot of an Image book. And for me, that's always a compliment. And that's the striking thing. Actually, it didn't feel like I was reading a Marvel book, and that's not a slam on Marvel. This is more of a slam on my experience with Marvel books in recent years. But it actually feels like I'm reading an Image book, and it with the Inhumans, they feel so, I know, almost divorced from other current Marvel stuff at the moment. It could be this independent comic. So yeah, that's a definite recommendation for me. I would get stuck in and join me on this adventure. I mean, at the moment, I think there's about 7 issues, maybe more. So people will be ahead of me, but I'm interested to see where this goes. And it's so annoying. Like, I started this podcast wanting to focus on non-superhero indie comics, and I've challenged my own prejudices and found we've come across or been recommended a lot of interesting superhero stuff. So I mean, it just shows you, man, don't close any doors. Keep your doors open, and there's a lot of goodness out there.
I mean,
but yeah, I'd recommend it to you guys. At least read the first issue and see what you think. It's doing some interesting stuff.
Yeah, I intend to give this a look. What I have seen in like recent times in comic shops, there's this whole, because I've not really been following some of the bigger Marvel stuff and whatever. I've been dipping in and out, and I think the only things I have followed were Silver Surfer, Thanos, and I'm reading Peter Parker Spectacular Spider-Man. But where does this fit with the whole Inhumans versus X-Men thing that happened? Because that happened.
I know. That's a Greg question. That ain't a Leon question.
This is Greg asking a Greg question, because this is how out of it I am with this stuff sometimes. But yeah, there's this whole Inhumans versus X-Men thing that happened, and I don't know where this fits with that. And is there currently an Inhumans comic as well, or is there just the Black Bolt?
I'm unsure. I'm not even sure how much connected this is, because the events seem to be quite end of the worldish. No, not really end of the worldish, but quite devastating. So I'm not sure where it falls in the run, or if it's even
part of anything to do with anything else.
Yeah, part of a current canon or lead up to an event or anything. It feels very much its own little thing in the same way that Mr. Miracle does.
Virgin waters for me, this will be, if I start reading it. I mean, my experience for the Inhumans and for Black Bolt is via Fantastic Four comics that I've read when they turn up in Fantastic Four stories from way back. So it's like old Fantastic Four. I've got this like Fantastic Four collected edition thing that's got like some Fantastic Four stories in it, and it's got like some crossover with the Inhumans. And like one of my favourite Black Bolt moments is when he turns up in Old Man Logan. In the original,
the newer one.
No, the original one that we reviewed.
Oh yeah, of course. Yes, yeah. See, I do remember. Yeah.
The whole shh thing.
Yeah, this is a very different Black Bolt here. That's the thing, I forgot to mention some of the basics. Like he's kind of like Banshee, isn't he? He's got really like quasi supersonic vocal cords or something. So like he's very destructive. So he has to be like super disciplined not to destroy people just by like whispering a bit too loudly.
Yeah.
And I think that they start this off, and he's got like Bane-like mask on, and he doesn't know how the mask got on him. He doesn't know how to remove it, and it's really cool because it sort of limits how much you can see of his face. So the only, and the dialogue is he doesn't speak for a lot of it, and all the dialogue is third person. So it's kind of like distancing, but not, because you still sort of feel like in his shoes in a way, but you're projecting a lot of how you'd feel on it because you can't see his emotions in his face or like in his voice and what he says.
Yeah.
So it's really cool sort of idea to do, but it also makes him look like extra badass.
No, I like the idea of Black Bolt and what you're saying about them being the new gods, but not the new gods, like the Marvel version and everything. It's true. It all came from Jack Kirby, so I'm not surprised that there's some similarities and some parallels that can be drawn there. But yeah, no, I'll have to.
A lot of sorry, I was going to say, it seems like there's a lot of Kirby love this year.
Oh yeah. Well, was his 100th birthday, wasn't it? So, or he would have been 100 this year had he been still alive. So this is where all the Jack Kirby stuff's coming back, and people are starting to celebrate him and the way that he put down the groundwork and the way that he kind of like dictated the landscape of comics for all those years to come and for all the years to come still, because that's what that man did effectively. He took the sandbox and he terraformed it to a degree.
We're going to say tipped it over.
No.
That's better.
Yeah, he took that sandbox and he terraformed it, and he created this whole ecosystem kind of thing that people now are playing around in and continuing to evolve with their own ideas, I think is the best way that I can put it.
It feels like he just created. Obviously, his books themselves are just like great and genius and so ahead of their time. But it feels like also he's been so inspirational, and his ideas are so intricate and multifaceted that they've just provided a really good jumping off ground for a lot of current creators now.
Yes, indeed. So, you have anything else on your list?
I do. I have the second issue of a comic book that we brought up on here before. Images and number 1 with a bullet, written by Jacob Saman, the art done by Jorge Corona, colors by Jen Hickman, and lettering and design by Steve Wands. So if listeners remember the episode where we brought this up, it was very much a sort of technicolor exploration of how intangible privacy is becoming in a modern era, and how the social media is quite isolating at the same time, and all the dangers of the sort of faux connections that we're having. And I think the second issue continues that theme and runs with it and takes it to some really interesting places. I mean, starting off with the cover, which I really like, it's the familiar appearance that everybody's seen of dropped, broken iPhone, and it's got a image of Nash on there, our protagonist, and it's a still from a video that was referred to in the climax of the previous issue. So, and it has an awesome like orange to purpley plum gradient going across, which so image, so beautiful. But this issue deals with the aftermath of those events, and it delves deep into like the various ways violations of privacy can happen, and the circus of mass social media and how that can be used to like terrorize people. And it delves into the harsh and ugly realities of victim blaming and isolation. All very sci-fi stuff, guys. That doesn't happen in the real world. But yeah, it really nails a lot of these phenomena, and it like puts a good has a good balance between, in my opinion, handling or demonstrating how one would deal with a scandal like this happening and being all over the internet, and in a worse way than's ever happened before. This is like a celebrity nude leaked times a million, but it's horrible because the person included is not even... I mean, it's always horrible, but in this case it's weird because it's blown up in a way and this person isn't particularly famous. It's just the first person this has happened to in this medium, which is the contact lens AR VR type thing they had before in the first episode. So it explores like the troubling and like not so sci-fi anymore notion of like revenge porn, but like in AR VR, which is a very real thing that we are just on the doorstep of. And it uses what I think what I really like about this is because the animation is so sort of not loose, but it has this cool sort of animation. The art, it has this cool sort of unrestricted like character design, and like every character has quite an interesting look or face that I don't know, it pulls through their personality quite well, and they make use of like really cool like color palettes where you'll have like various panels which are sort of one-offs, like during a montage scene, sort of in the middle, and the color palette will just be different types of blues for this particular one, or different types of greens, or different types of reds, and it's really cool. It just I don't know, it gives a lot of character, and it's especially in the collage like overlapping panels during one of the media meltdown parts is I know it's an effective demonstration of like sort of the media drama and like that sort of cycle that we have now when something hits news and it's drama for 24 hours and then we forget about it. It definitely has that feel, but in this sense, it doesn't feel fleeting at all, and it deals with how to sort of deal and survive that when everyone everywhere has access to this technology. And during that montage, it's particularly gross, but like you see the differences between like other dudes and their various reactions to it in very sleazy ways, and then other women just like victim blaming or like just laughing along with it, and it's like it is the horrible worst case scenario. And there's like a great panel with when they go to a cafe and it's in the back, and one guy basically says along the lines, "Oh, I'm sorry, hashtag not all men though." And I think the reply bubble that Nash has is so good. It's just like thanks, but like the bubble is starting to like melt, and it just says like, well, it's like thanks ... and it's so much like, oh, thank you for your useful input into my current ruined life. So yeah, I think like it uses the themes effectively, and it feels like especially poignant in our sort of current climate, where a lot of men who've like abused their power are being taken to task now, and there's some like real answers and consequences for a lot of this, and it feels very timely with that, while also dealing with our sort of nonchalant enjoyment of people's leaked data, famous people's emails get leaked, famous people's iCloud pictures get hacked, and we as a public, we don't really view their privacy as high, because it's why, if they didn't want it to happen, they shouldn't have put those pictures on there, and it's we sort of don't value them as people as such, and it demonstrates what happens when it happens to a random normal person. So I think it's very good. It's going in an intriguing direction, and the second issue ends on quite an interesting hook. So this is something. It feels like it's bringing in another element that is heavily linked to all this sort of cyber misconduct and shenanigans, and I'm really hopeful that it's going to go somewhere worthwhile. So I think, Rahul, you read this as well?
Yeah. To echo some of the things that you've already kind of touched on, the scariest part of this story is that it's framed around this new technology of these new contact lenses, which take holographic recordings of everything constantly, and allow you to interact with that same holographic recording. Because in issue 1, it's shown that she's wearing these, and there's some audience participation going on, or she's there's a performative aspect to it. And so these really private, it could record private moments, and these private moments can be hacked in and stolen. And that's terrifying. But all of the things that she's going through under the lens of this new technology that it's proposing are things that are happening to people right now. And that's the kind of stuff that's happening with whatever technology we currently have. And beyond that is less about what the technology allows, but what people feel like they have the right to have access to. And it's this weird thing, because you mentioned revenge porn, but it's it's a step even beyond revenge porn. It's people having entitlement or access, or just for malicious reasons, being able to find something that you've kept private, and even anybody involved in whatever was happening in private is completely outside of the actions of somebody who's who can take it from you and to put it out to the world. And it's just crazy. And it feels like it's a comic book version of all of the essays and Twitter conversations that are happening right now, but made into its own mold. I think if it was in less talented hands, it could be, quote unquote, a very special episode, but because of how well they integrate it into this story, and how good the artwork is, and how interesting the use of the medium is, like you mentioned, the bubbling speech bubbles and stuff like that, I think it comes into something really clever and insightful and educational. And part of the education, I liked how towards the end of the book she has this speech where she spends the whole issue being told how other people feel about the violations happening upon her, but then it culminates in her finding her own voice to give some revelations about the situation, and then people doubt her testimony, which is it's something that happens right now all the time. It's so current that it hurts. It's ridiculous. It's this kangaroo court thing where every choice she makes, every action she takes is the wrong action, and there's no beating this beast. And it's just violation upon violation. And then the way the story ends, there's even more than what we've just discussed now. And I think if you want to find out, you read the book, whatever. But I love that. The one thing I really like about this is there is a slightly educational aspect to it, in that post story, it ends with an interview from a woman gamer describing her experiences in what's essentially a male-dominated area, at least the toxic elements are. And she echoes some of the same things I've heard from basically every single female gamer that I know. And whether they play online, talking to other people and having a trepidation about playing online, or, even just having an interest in video games in general and having to stifle what they say because, some guy might try and mansplain to her. But then this real life story that's at the end of this book it escalates to horrifying levels. And it's it's interesting to have this exposure in this medium. And I also appreciated that following this, there's advice on how to deal with online harassment. So I think anyone who is either interested in the state of things right now when it comes to, online violations, or maybe needs to be taught, or doesn't fully understand the situation of people who go through things that they may not ever have to deal with, this is a good way to be, get caught up on the state of things. I don't know if you agree.
This book, I've not read issue 2 yet. Issue 1, it encapsulates all of my worst fears, basically. I'm not sure if it's healthy for me to read this because I know I am. For me, it's not. I mean, I understand. I should. It's a great book for what it's doing, for what you've described, that it's bringing this stuff forward and it's putting this stuff into a
palatable,
into a palatable and accessible way that people can take it on board and people can think about it and use it to influence their actions, and
or even just be exposed to it in a different way, because people take on information in different ways.
But like, for me, it's the whole issue of privacy and things like that. I mean, this is what keeps me awake at night anyway, thinking about my phone and thinking about the way my phone works, and the fact that I don't fully understand this black tablet in my pocket. As much as I understand it, as much as I understand what I need to understand in order for me to be able to use it and for me to be able to navigate social media and things like that, I still feel, I don't know, like lost in the woods kind of thing sometimes. And this
I mean, I don't think it's healthy for you to read it where it stands currently, but I get the impression it's going to lead to something. I don't know, maybe something a bit more cathartic, or but right now it's terrifying.
I'm terrified of this stuff anyway. This book sounds like nightmare fuel.
Don't buy an Amazon Echo Dot, because I did over Black Friday, and just randomly when you're watching movies, Alexa will suddenly chime in with something for no reason. It's really weird. Don't do it. Don't do that to yourself, because I'm not normally affected.
Have you listened to your recordings of your Alexa stuff?
You can what? Can you do that?
Yeah. On a Giant Bomb, one of the guys on there, he had all the recordings of the stuff where he would ask Alexa, and it is Black Mirror territory.
No.
Nope.
Oh, I'm gonna go unplug her. That's awful. Because when I'm in the house on my own, I'm constantly muttering to myself, and I have no recollection of what I've been saying. So I don't like
Jesus. No. Yeah. See, this is it. This is why I'm gonna move into a log cabin and sever all ties.
Turn into shirtless bear fighter.
Yeah. That's going to be me living off maple syrup and bacon in 10 years time or something. I don't know. No, but I understand what this book's trying to do and everything. It's just me with my state of mind. I don't think I've got the stomach for it right now. But I want to read it.
Future,
yeah, I want to read it. I want to be able to understand this stuff, and it's just I want to be able to confront my fears, basically, because I am so scared of all of this stuff that this book comes out with. I'm petrified of my personal information finding its way into somebody else's hands. That's one of my biggest fears. But yeah, no.
Well, speaking of unstoppable, terrifying forces, I also read John Wick #1. So let me just bring up the details for this. So John Wick #1, something I've been looking forward to for ages, actually. So it's written by Greg Pak, art by Giovanni Valleta, colours by David Quirrell and Inlight Studios, and letters by Tom Napolitano. And also, this is something I don't see very often, but edited by Anthony Marquez. So, I mean, does that happen often, editing in comics that are done by a third party? Or
Yeah.
Well, they all have an editor, but I know what you mean. It feels like it's... I've seen that a lot with, anthology-type books.
Okay. Well, yeah, so this one, Greg Pak being the guy who wrote Mech Cadet U and Planet Hulk. Mech Cadet U I I fucking adore right now. Giovanni Valleta, I don't think he's done anything that I know. As far as I can tell, he's a freelance artist for Marvel, and he did something called Eternal, which was a 4-issue run from 2014. So anyway, when I first watched John Wick #1 back in 2014, I was really surprised to find that it wasn't based on a pre-existing comic book property. Like, it really feels like it's come from that kind of world, where the film made use of some really brilliantly comic book conventions to flesh out the world, like adding some hyperreal mystery and character to a film centered around hyperreal violence and action. Like, I love that film, and I love that it not only used show don't tell to effectively describe Wick and, you know, the sinister company he keeps, but also it had this intriguing, it had all these intriguing unexplained elements, such as the super comic booky underground coin currency to pay for everything. Like, you put 1 coin down for a gun, and you also put 1 coin down for like a hotel room, and you put 1 coin down for like, how do they put it? There's like a really weird euphemism for like shady hitman services. So you call up a restaurant and you actually get a bunch of people who come and take away all the bodies that you've massacred. So anyway, when I saw that they were going to make this into a comic book, it felt like a natural fit. But the timing's odd, because John Wick 2 came out a lot earlier this year, and the comic just came out a couple of weeks ago. But anyway, if I hadn't been sold by its mere existence, then the cover would have done it for me, because the cover for this is gorgeous. It captures like that dark neon vibe from the nightclub scene in the first movie. So it's got lots of energy and motion, and has John Wick in a swish suit pinning down a guy while like pointing a gun in his face in these dark blue and pink tones. It's really cool. And the variant cover by Dennis Cowan, I believe, also great. Like Wick swishing around holding an assault rifle against like this really splashy, colorful backdrop of a shootout. And it's really good stuff. So I can basically sum up this comic as it puts the fun in functional. So it's a prequel, giving both the origin of John Wick, the hitman, as he finds his footing in the crazy world of this continental hotel system of psychos, and also John Wick, the guy with issues, I guess, before he became a hitman, flashing back to, you know, what we find out is his violent childhood. And all of this is basically just in service of one awesome shootout in the middle of the book, where John Wick dives through a window to save a cat and break some bones. It's pretty awesome. Like I said, functional. Similarly to the plot, the artwork isn't doing anything crazy or special. It's not like #1 with a bullet, where it's doing some really clever things with the medium or has interesting panel construction or colors or anything. But it's also like just competent and expressive. So Giovanni captures basically the full gamut of Keanu Reeves' stern and stoic facial expressions, and does like bodies being flung around really well. So if that's what you're into, then, you know, this could work for you. And one good thing is that the comic Wick looks just enough like Keanu without it looking Uncanny Valley, and it remains consistent with the look of everybody else in the story. So it's cool. It doesn't kind of take you out of the story or anything. And Greg Pak's dialogue for John Wick is written in such a way that you can kind of hear Keanu's voice in your head when he does speak, which is not very often. So yeah, I liked it. Doesn't do anything amazing, but it's good, like popcorn reading, and I just love the cover for it, which is why I picked it up. I don't know if you guys were interested in this one. Did either of you pick it up? Or
I didn't pick it. I didn't pick it up. I mean, I do have an interest in it because obviously John Wick, but I haven't picked it up to read it yet. And there was this, there was some stuff that I'm not sure. Maybe you can clear this up for me. I'm not sure if this is just someone being weird on Twitter, or if this was like some kind of, if this is actually in the book at all, if it's some kind of weird rumor or something. But something Johnny Utah is what is basically what I got from this. That somehow I don't know whether this is just me making things up or what. I just had this whole thing in my head that from some throwaway comment that someone made on Twitter that this was going to link back into Point Break somehow.
I didn't pick up on that, but let me take a quick skim through. Like, I don't know. That's not. I'm going to have to take another read, but I didn't catch that from this. But that would be awesome if it does come into the, you know, into the full run at some point.
I think I'm just being ridiculous about a stupid joke that someone tried to make, about Keanu Reeves.
You just want what you want.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Be damned what reality is.
Reality be damned. I want the unified Keanuverse.
That would be epic. I'd love a Keanuverse. Like, he plays the same guy in every single film.
No, but it's like,
awesome.
imagine, like, you've got, like, these different versions of Keanu Reeves crossing paths. So, you've got John Wick, you've got Johnny Utah, and you've got Theodore Logan. Like,
got lots of Johns, haven't you? You've got Johnny Mnemonic as well.
Yeah, they're all just crossing paths, all running into each other, you know, and then presiding over it all, kind of like, I guess Dr. Manhattan style, you've got Neo.
That would be cool.
Like, running everything inside the Matrix. So...
Also, I'd like to retract my comment about him playing the same character in every film. I think Keanu Reeves is a very talented and multifaceted actor.
No, I do. I love Keanu Reeves. I do. Like,
I know. I'm the one who said it.
Yeah. No, my like one of my favorite films of all time is Point Break. So I think that's just me wishing for Point Break to be tied into a comic somewhere. But
yeah, no, I'm not sure he's in this.
Yeah.
But, I mean, check it out anyway.
No, I think
you'll.
I think I just basically misconstrued and took literally a joke that someone made on Twitter. But goddamn, do I wish it was true.
Oh well.
Yeah, the unified Keanuverse. There we go.
If only.
Yeah.
And then, so I've only got one more thing which I've been reading, and that's Demon Volume 4, which is by Jason Shiga. And I think I mentioned this back in episodes 14 and 15 when I picked up volumes 1 and 2. It's a webcomic turned into 4 volumes of a comic book. Not much to really add on to this, except to say that I really enjoyed the entire thing, and I'm glad that I got to finally read the ending. And with it being like a mystery, puzzly box style comedy action gross out thriller, anything I say will be a spoiler. So what I will say is that the crazy mathematician, Jason Shiga, clearly had the whole arc planned out from the start, and all the logic remains internally consistent and wraps together really nicely and neatly. I mean, I think it does. I mean, who the fuck can tell? It like twists inside itself so much. It's crazy. I was just along for the ride. I'd recommend it still, picking out all the 4 volumes if you like, you know, twisty-turny sci-fi plots, lots of intricate, thoroughly thought out and explained MacGyvering and stuff. Lots of gross out comedy violence. It's also got a very cute style, despite being so violent and gross. So if that's your thing, then yeah, pick that up. Demon by Jason Shiga.
Here's a question: do I have to understand the math in order to be able to understand this book?
Not really. It does that like mad scientist thing where he, like, the protagonist voices out loud what, you know, the justification behind everything. But like, I barely paid attention to it. It's just nice to know that I think a lot of the science behind it is basically real, because the guy himself is, you know, a high-level mathematician, master, whatever you want to call him, like PhD in mathematics guy. So just take it on faith that he's puzzled it all out.
Right.
And to be fair, even if you don't understand, you know, the underlying mathematics behind it, he does demonstrate it nicely with diagrams and stuff. And it's never over the top or crazy to, you know, you don't have to sit down and actually study it. Just because for every like graph showing angles and distances, there's somebody getting a head chopped off. So I mean, you know, it all balances out.
I'm just going to hold my hand up and say that I have trouble on occasion with basic arithmetic. So
I mean, me too. Like I need a calculator for everything I do. But yeah, you don't need to know the maths to appreciate any of this. If anything, it will make you appreciate maths more because it puts it in the context of, you know, weird, disgusting stuff. Yeah, which is always nice.
Well, I like weird, disgusting stuff, so maybe I'll like maths if it's maybe if my teacher taught maths.
Not like this, Rick. Not like this. You really don't want this. Not in your life.
Oh dear. Anyway, does that bring us to the end of the list? I think that brings us to the end of the list. Yes. So I guess we should just reel off some of the stuff we're looking forward to. I guess the 13th, which is the next new comic book day, so the 13th of December, the next NCBD before Christmas. So,
which will be when this podcast is coming out.
Advent Calendar Door number 13. Behind that, we have Mr. Miracle number 5, which I guess all 3 of us are after.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. I want to see where this is going. I want to read another Mr. Miracle book. Tom King is killing comics this year. Killing comics. And I am really impressed with his Mr. Miracle run. So, yeah, number 5. Ray, you've got a bunch of stuff that you're looking forward to on the 13th as well.
Yeah, I'm just going to rattle off a few. So that's Spiritus number 4. The Wicked and the Divine has a Christmas annual coming out. And then there's also Minky Woodcock, The Girl Who Handcuffed Houdini number 2, which, is the second issue for comic we spoke about last issue, or last episode.
Also, for me, on the 20th, we've got 13th, we've got Retcon number 4. So now I actually get Retcon. Having read issue 3, it's now all been... I'm 3 issues in, and because I was struggling to understand where the name Retcon came from for this series, and where this whole concept of... Because the writers had gone out of their way to explain to you that this was something that had happened before, and the whole concept of this thing was that it was a retcon. And now I've read issue 3, I get it. The same sequence of events continue to repeat themselves because somebody is dragging everyone back in time to repeat the same sequence of events to try and change the outcome. Kind of, who was it who said that something about insanity is repeating the same action and expecting different results?
I don't know who that's attributed to, but that's a saying.
It's a saying, and a famous scientist came out with it.
I think it's often like fake attributed to Einstein, but it wasn't him who said it.
It wasn't actually Einstein that said it. No.
I think that's what I remember correctly.
Right. I'll look it up and I'll put it in the show notes. But it's kind of got... That's the first thing that popped into my head when I read issue 3 of Retcon. So I'm excited about it now because I'm actually starting to understand where this whole retcon theme that they have going on is fitting together, and I actually really like it. I really, really, really like it. So, retcon number 4. On the 20th, I've got Batman number 37, which is the continuation of the double date thing that I mentioned previously in the podcast. It's been kind of set up with issue 36, and it's this whole the world dealing with the fact that Batman and Catwoman are engaged thing. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. So it's soap opera with capes and cowls, I guess, is a good way to describe it. Maybe that's doing it a disservice by describing it that way, because it's much more than that, and Tom King is a fantastic writer. So yeah. We've also got the Curse Words Holiday Special on the 20th. So I'm... Goodness only knows. Syzygy only knows what lies in the pages of that book. But I am looking forward to that. Definitely, 100%. I don't know about you guys, whether you'll pick that up.
Yeah, why not? Sounds cool.
Curse Words Holiday Special. Christmas with Wizard. That it does actually sound like it'd be fantastic, actually. And if what's happening right now in Curse Words is anything to go on, I think we're in for a treat. And I guess that wraps us up this time. Unfortunately, not able to get any questions in, but we will answer them next time. So, yes, we do love questions. Please continue to send them to us. That wraps us up. That's episode 24. You can find us on Facebook under acecomicals. You can find us on Twitter at acecomicals. You can find us on WordPress, which is acecomicals.wordpress.com. You can find us on various podcasting apps. You can find us on iTunes if you just search for Ace Comicals. I think about the only place you can't find us right now is the Google Store, right? Yeah.
But who uses that?
Yeah.
Go on. Go to iTunes,
exactly,
go to TuneIn, go to Pocket Cast, go somewhere else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Go to one of those other places that actually lets English people use their service. So there we go. You can find me on Twitter under @Bato. You can field questions there. You can field questions to the Ace Comicals Twitter, either by DM, or you can straight up call me out with a reply or something like that. I don't mind. You can also field questions via the Ace Comicals email address, which is acecomicals@gmail.com. Ray, where can we find you?
On Twitter, @Monkeh, so that's @MOONKEH.
And Leon, where can we find you?
At Leon Everett on Twitter.
And of course, the hub for everything Ace Comicals is www.acecomicals.com. There's also a link to our Instagram on there where you can find us under Ace Comicals. So there we go. That has been Ace Comicals episode 24. Ace Comicals, over and out.